Good afternoon to everyone. A warm welcome from MDs for today's webinar on overview of borderline difficulties faced by children in classroom setup. So, so little about our Embrace. Embrace was started as an open community for mothers by mothers. The vision is to form a supporting community that offers services and knowledge based program and children with special needs in an efficient manner. We are a team of special educators, counselors, psychologists, ABA therapists, occupational therapists, and many professionals as volunteers. The service what we offer. We are offering a free counseling sessions for parents of special need child, and we are now extending our services to free counseling services for elderly people also. We do conduct webinars to parents and professionals, which is useful to manage their child and in their profession. And we do also provide resources and information from Embrace. So this is a little bit of our embrace. So now I'm going to introduce our renowned speakers of the day today, and that is first one is Miss Pushpa Rao. She has been in field of special education for last 12 years. She has a master degree in inclusion and special education from University of Northampton, UK, and B.Ed degree in special education from Karnataka State Open University, Mysore. She has been with Brindavan for last 9 years. She is presently the coordinator of Senior Center of Brindavan and works with adolescent student towards school completion at secondary and senior secondary level. She is also a faculty for teacher training and parent training courses conducted at Brindavan. She loves to travel and trek in her free times. And here is another
Thank you very much.
welcome, ma'am. Thank you so much. You obliged our request and agreed to give a webinar for our community people. So another important speaker of the day is Ms. Janki Narayan. Her qualification is BA in Public Relations, MA Social Work, specialization in HRD. She has done her diploma in special education, B.Ed in special education. Janaki, ma'am, is a parent of special need child. She has been part of special education field for about 17 years. That's amazing, ma'am. She is creating awareness about learning difficulties, establishing resource room in mainstream schools wherever possible. She is a faculty for parent course and a teacher training course and teaching students in Senior Center of Brindavan Education Trust for NIOS program. Janki loves spending time with family, traveling, listening to classical music, watching plays, and reading. A warm welcome to you both of you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'll hand over the platform to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I will start.
You can probably start with the PPT.
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
So good afternoon to you all. And many thanks to the Embrace team for the introduction. That's very nice. And for organizing this webinar. It is heartwarming to see so many of you interested in today's topic. And I understand from many parts of India, maybe some parts of the world too, the subject of learning disabilities is very vast. I think we have 1 hour to say what we have to say. And we will do the best we can in providing an overview and share some of the learnings regarding children with learning difficulties. My colleague Pushpa will now say a few words before we start on our topic for today.
Thank you, Janki. Good afternoon, everyone. It's really a very happy feeling to see so many of you turning up for this session on a Saturday afternoon. It really shows your commitment and your dedication towards the children that you're working with. Like Janaki mentioned, learning disability is very has a very wide scope. So what we are going to touch upon in today's session as well as in the next Saturday's session is basically a bird's eye view, a trailer, if you will. So we hope that this motivates and encourages you to explore further into the different areas of learning disability and interests you more. So before we dive into today's topic, I would first like to introduce the organization, briefly give you an introduction of the organization that we both represent. Next slide, please. Yeah, Janaki and I are from Vrindavan Education Trust. We are a premier center for children with special learning difficulties in Bangalore. We are 27 years old. It was set up in 1993 by Rupa Shivkumar, late Mrs. Rupa Shivkumar, Dr. Gayatri Krishna, and Mrs. Usman Narayan Murthy. We have two full-time learning centers where the focus is on skill development and school completion through the NIOS board and SSLC. We have recently also added the PUC into this mix. We have two after-school remedial programs wherein children learning in the mainstream schools visit for after-school support. We have a pre-vocational center which provides pre-vocational training along with social skills, life skills, and functional literacy to the students. We have amazing training programs for both teachers and parents. For teachers, we have a full-fledged SLD training program. This is where you will see the full movie about the SLD concept. We cover almost 90% of the scope of SLD here. And we also have a parent training program, and we have for teachers, we also have an early intervention program. We also conduct annual seminars every year where we have eminent speakers coming in to address various topics on inclusion and special education. It is mostly attended by school heads, special educators, mainstream school teachers, parents, psychologists, and counselors. We have an amazing parent support group, which not only empowers the parents of special educational needs, they also help them in developing the network and support system to help their own child and themselves. Vrindavan also conducts educational assessments for those children who are in need. Next slide, please. Our contact information is up on this slide. Please note it down if you would like to get in touch with us for any of our programs. Next slide, please. We have already been nicely introduced, so I'm not going to go into this, and I think we can move on to the topic. Over to Janaki to get started with the topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Pushpa. We are doing this we are going to do this today and also next Saturday. So the first half hour I'll be talking, and the next half hour Pushpa will be talking to you. The objectives for the 2-day session is, first of all, we'll have an overview of the learning process itself, the typical characteristics of a child with SLD, specific learning difficulties. We'd rather say that rather than say the word disability. We will talk about how do you do observations and how do you write down the present levels of functioning with the child, the importance of support for our children with learning difficulties. We will talk about classroom accommodations, the teaching learning strategies, and board accommodations. Next slide, please. The objectives for today. How does learning take place? What are the typical characteristics of specific learning difficulties? And we will also see how to do observations, present levels, and what support systems. And the next slide, please.
Yeah, it's there.
Why do we need this session? Why do we need this session? In the context of schooling for children, academic achievement is an expectation. And the expectation is from the parent, from the teacher, and believe me, from the child himself or herself. But everyone's brain is not wired in the same way for coping with academic rigor. And this is always not due to a lack of effort or due to a lack of intelligence. Because in class, we see an apparently normal or above average child not doing well in studies. But the child is bright in so many other ways. We have seen as teachers in our class that these children with apparent problems in learning are so good at thinking out of the box. They are so good with skills in art, with skills in architecture. So we cannot simply label these children as lazy, as unmotivated, as not interested in studies, because they might have some underlying problems called learning difficulties. They learn differently, they understand things differently. And we call learning disabilities a hidden handicap. But we should also remember they have a sea of strengths, which as teachers we should be able to tap. Unlike other handicapping conditions, learning disabilities is actually hidden. Okay, and learning disabilities, when we look at children, what characteristics they manifest can be very different from one child to another child. Next slide, please. So in your classroom, as a class teacher, what do you see? You see a child who's inattentive, who's fidgeting all the time. He wants to be the class clown. Everybody is laughing, so he enjoys that. He's being difficult. When it comes to academics, you might see some errors in his spelling, in his content, the inadequate content in written work, and the bane of every teacher. I do not see homework coming in. So is it possibly a learning difficulty? I think we'll wait for somebody to mute.
Excuse me. Can you please, all of you, mute your audio and video, please? Sorry, ma'am. Sorry for the inconvenience. Please
absolutely no issues. Absolutely no issues. So we as class teachers have to be observant, and the best thing a class teacher can do is to document what are the learning issues these children are facing. What are the behavior issues these children are facing? It's nice if you can all start documenting it. Next slide, please. So we come to this specific learning difficulties. The 3 R's we say of reading, writing, arithmetic, they are not acquired automatically. Actually, they are learned in school. Actually, some parents have even told us, our child was doing very well in pre-KG, in KG class. It's only after he entered school the problem has started. So is there a problem with the school? Maybe not. Because the learning difficulty per se is an academic difficulty. It's not an intellectual difficulty. The learning difficulty manifests itself when you start academics in school. But we cannot assume that children with learning difficulties will somehow, they will get out of their difficulties as they become older. It's a lifelong condition, and the child cannot learn through the usual methods which you adopt in school. At the same time, we cannot deny them help because due to our lack of knowledge as a class teacher about learning difficulty, we cannot deny them that help, because if this help is denied to them in classrooms or through any other support system, they cannot perform to their actual potential. We have to understand that their problem is not a problem of intelligence. It is because their brain is not processing information like the way our brains are processing information. It is wired differently, that's all. Okay, so we'll keep this in mind, and we will go on to the next slide. Can we? Yes. And how learning takes place. So learning itself takes place through 4 processes, very much like a computer, isn't it? There is an input, perception, where we get information from all our senses. There is something called integration, where the brain is trying to make sense of what is the information coming in. There is something called memory, where all this information is stored, and at the right time, we have to retrieve that information. In fact, they say the skill of retaining what information which is necessary in our memory is a very good skill. And output. What is the action? What is the reaction? What is the feedback we get? Only then the loop is complete. We will know if the learning has happened. Now, a breakdown in any of these areas will lead to a learning difficulty. And as teachers, if we are very, very observant, we can even make out at which point in this process the breakdown in learning is happening. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is a small visual how we have the input, integration, memory, and output. Next slide, please. Now let us look at input itself. You can see the visual there, and it shows us that all the senses are contributing to what we receive as input. So the information which is arriving in the brain is primarily through a visual input and an auditory input. For instance, now, what am I doing? I'm in a lecture mode. I'm just telling you something. So we are in most classes, these 2 are the modalities we are using all the time, a visual input and an auditory input. When we worked in our classes, we found some children having issues. I'm turning my back and I'm writing on the board here. And I'm saying something at the same time. I'm explaining something. Our children are having problems when both inputs are needed at the same time. What is the teacher writing on the blackboard? And at the same time, he has to process what is the explanation she's trying to give. So, but one thing we have to be also aware is, if you look at these children, most of them have proper good eyesight, good hearing, or they might have corrected vision and corrected hearing. So it is not a problem of nearsightedness or farsightedness or any hearing issues. It is a problem of the processing. So can we move to the next slide, please? I'm going to tell you something related to input, which is something called visual perception difficulties, a hindered ability of making sense of what is coming through the eyes, right? So when you look at these children, what is left, what is right, what is up, what is down, you would think it's the simplest things to know, but our children do have difficulty with issues of this left and right, up and down, or positions in space. If you give them something to thread or something to lace, they will find it very difficult. That means they have poor eye-hand coordination. They miss the subtle differences in shapes, okay? This position and shape, like they would not know if you write A or E, they would not know these subtle differences in shapes. When you look at their reading and writing, that is so typical, like you would notice the reversals, rotations, all the difficulties they have with writing and copying from the board. By the time they have, you clean the board, they've said, I haven't copied yet. Okay. And when you ask them to read, they will be jumping over the words or skipping lines because the eye span is not happening completely for them. The scanning is not complete over the pages. I have seen children bumping into chairs, sometimes, bumping into other people, not keeping that one arm distance between people. They are misjudging the depth. It's all linked to this, the issues with learning and visual perception. And one more problem they have is called a figure ground problem. That means the ability to locate a specific form or a specific object without getting confused with what is happening in the background. Suppose you ask the child, locate the answers in the book, come on, look at the book and pull out an answer. They will have issues because when you give a book with so much of small print and too many words, a child with learning difficulties has a figure ground problem and he struggles to read those things. Okay, and the same way, if you give some pictures with some letters hidden in it, they find it very difficult, whereas others might find it a fun activity. Sometimes the next slide, I would be talking about an auditory figure ground also, where there is so much of noise coming in from outside and you're forced to focus on somebody who's addressing you now. Like maybe you have to focus on me now, but if there is something more interesting happening outside, you might be looking at, that might be your major input. Whereas we will have to get rid of that distraction and focus on what is to be listened to. That is called, the figure ground issue, which our children have. Sometimes when we are speaking in class, they will be listening to a distantly heard aeroplane and they will miss the main presentation which the teacher is doing. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, it's a figure ground activity which we normally give for assessment for children. We'll tell them find all the letters of the alphabet. Looks easy, but our children have had major difficulties with this. We have tried it out in some schools. Can we go to the next slide, please? Auditory perception difficulties. This is also troubling. This is also the trouble they have with processing and making sense of sounds. The difficulty with subtle differences in sounds. Suppose you give them a spelling test and you say ball, they might write bell. They might write something else. We have noticed that the maximum problem our children with learning difficulties have is with the vowel sounds. That fine difference between vowel sounds they cannot make out. Or they hear only the first sound. Or they hear only the last sound. They will write spelling. They might write BA and forget the rest of the spelling. Or they might... I think we'll just wait for someone to go mute you. Yeah. So they have some subtle differences with sounds like ball and bell. Auditory lag is there. That means, see, the problem with our children with learning disability, I said, is a problem of processing. And we have been told that they hear words at the wrong speed. The speed of processing is affected. That's why they have so much of difficulty. So we cannot rush a child to answer. We really have to be patient and wait so that you say it slowly, you say it clearly, you keep your sentences really short and very explicit instruction, and then they can understand. You cannot rush the child. Multiple instructions. If you give 3 instructions, they might do 1 and then they'll get very, very confused. Okay, go take your math book, open page 91. Oh, by the way, write your name on top, write the class on top. By the time some other sound comes from somewhere, the PT master rushes in and says, "This time for sport." So many instructions coming in, the child is very confused. Even when we have given an instruction like, go upstairs, go get a book, give it to another teacher and come back, somewhere we have noticed the child does the first instruction and then forgets the rest of it. They have difficulty with multiple instructions. Can we go to the next slide, please? Integration difficulties. There are two things in integration. One is called sequencing and one is called abstraction. The word integration itself means the brain captures a wide range of sensory stimuli and it links them together. So when you say there is difficulty in integration, you mean that the child is not able to interpret the information, categorize the information, sequence the information, and link it to what he knows earlier. That is a very, very important part of learning, linking to prior knowledge. Okay, and I've seen in some Montessori schools that they teach this categorization quite a bit. It helps a lot for this integration. Okay, and let me give some abstraction difficulties. Abstract thinking, they say, is the basic meaning of words. Inferring meaning from the context itself. They might not know the exact meaning of the word. Okay, she is wearing a blue dress. The wind blew the paper away. Sounds the same, but from context, you should know the meaning. Our children have difficulty picking up clues from context. They always have a problem when you are being sarcastic or know some kind of metaphor or simile. The play of words they cannot understand. See, I have noticed that they can understand new concepts. The problem is they cannot generalize it to other areas. They can learn some facts, but they cannot put it together and see the whole picture. Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? Memory difficulties. I know as teachers, this is the area we always have, we are saying that child is having a problem with memory. They don't remember what we taught. Please look at the slide for a minute and go through it. And because I will be talking of one specific memory, I'll give you a second to go through this. So memory just means we should store information and recall it when needed. Now, children with learning difficulties have problem maximum with this working memory, okay? Because what do you have to do in working memory? It's a limited capacity memory. It is a memory which is meant to hold things temporarily. What do you have to do? You have to remember something and then you have to process it at the same time. Suppose I tell you one address of a person and then I'm telling you instructions also how to reach the place. What am I asking you to do? Are you remembering something? And then you're also processing that information at the same time. So that is what a working memory has to do. And our children have a limited capacity as far as their working memory is concerned. That's why they have so much difficulty, because they cannot comprehend if you give one long set of instructions. Because what are you doing? You are giving them so much of a cognitive load, right? So what do you're telling a story with a long sequence of events. What are they trying to do? They're trying to understand the story. They're trying to understand the sequence, and they're trying to listen to it and make sense of it by linking it to prior knowledge. That will be very, very difficult for a child with a learning difficulty. Because how much brain usage the student needs to process the information, you have to keep that in mind, okay? So the information has to be given in bite-sized chunks for a child with learning difficulties. Because when you break up this information, it frees up that working memory. Actually, learning new skills, it takes up lot of the working memory. Okay, so that is the issue our children have. And then we go to the long-term memory. Of course, once a student has practiced a skill enough, it will stick to his long-term memory. And as special educators, that's what we try to do. Can we go to the next slide, please? Output difficulties. Now you need an output, you need a feedback. You need to know that learning has occurred. So the demonstration has to happen. That, how can it happen? Through language, which is an output activity. What do? You have to organize thoughts in the brain and use the right words to explain correctly verbally what you have understood. So through words, you're looking at that output. Sometimes we notice these children spontaneously, they talk so much, so nicely. Whereas demand language, they have a problem. That means they want to talk on their own, they're initiating something, they're fine. But when you ask a question, specifically to that question, you want the correct answer, our children do have difficulties. Now, the output can also be demonstrated through muscle activity. When you write the answer, when you gesture to show you have understood, so on and so forth. Okay, so those also, our children might have a motor disability or a language disability, and they might have understood so many things, but you will never see that being manifested because they have these output difficulties. Next slide, please. This is a picture of the brain. Look at the normal brain reading. Can you see that? There are 3 areas, and the active areas are linking vision to sound and meaning. 3 areas. Look at the dyslexic brain. A child with dyslexia shows little activity in areas linking the language to the visual clues. But I want you all to think about one aspect also. Suppose I say, the brain area in my right hemisphere, which deals with the faculty for learning music, is underdeveloped. I cannot sing. I cannot reproduce a tune. If I say that, it is just like the child with learning disability saying, I cannot write. We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. Our children with learning difficulties have a lot of strengths. So with this empathy, let's move ahead. And I'm going to ask my colleague Pushpa to take over and continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Janaki. Next slide, please. So now that we know how learning takes place and what are the processes involved in learning, let's go ahead and understand a little bit more about specific learning difficulties and what are the characteristics that define them in several of the skill areas. The most common red flag that indicates the possibility of the difficulty in a school or at home is the discrepancy in the child's academic performance and the intellectual ability of the child. So here you have a very smart child who is very outgoing, street smart, can solve the problems around him, is good with making friends, and all those social skills are in place. But when it comes to the academic part of putting the paper and pen together, there is a huge gap, or there is a huge part where it doesn't make sense. But a child being so intelligent and so smart, how come when it comes to the academics, there is lagging performance? Typically, a child with specific learning difficulty has problems or has challenges in one or more of the following skill areas. It could be oral, both listening and or speaking, reading mechanics as well as the comprehension part, reading and writing the spellings, written expression, which could be difficulty with the handwriting as well as generating the content for the written work, solving problems in maths, and of course cognitive and behavioral skills. Also, more often than not, a child with specific learning difficulty can have the associated problems with regard to attention deficit disorder and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Next slide, please. A brief look into the types of SLD. Dyslexia is where the child is finding it very difficult to read, decoding the language. Dysgraphia is where there is difficulty in writing mechanics. And dyscalculia is with dealing with the numbers and concepts in mathematics. Next slide, please. Okay, coming into the specific characteristics of SLD, even before we go into the academic skills like oral or reading or spelling, the general difficulty that we see in a classroom is what you see on the slide right now, starting with the low attention span. So the child cannot sustain the attention for more than 5 minutes or 8 minutes or 6 minutes for any activity, even when the teacher is trying to change the mode of delivery from visual to auditory to tactile or hands-on activity. The child cannot sustain the attention and loses interest very fast. Poor memory, which results in the child not being able to remember to bring the right required books to this classroom or become prepared for a test or presentation, or even able to link the background knowledge that the child already has on a concept to what is being taught in the classroom right now. The child gets confused with simple instructions, just like Janki mentioned. Normal classroom instructions to take out the science classwork and write the questions that are on the board and answer them will confuse the child a lot, and he may be wondering what needs to be done. Difficulty sequencing in terms of even oral narration of having to tell what they did on a weekend or what are the places that they visited on a trip is very difficult for the child, because again, the sequencing itself is an issue with the integration part, and the poor memory may also add to the confusion. Most often than not, you see the child not completing the tasks given in the classroom, whether it is to complete the notes, whether it is to complete the group activity, or whether it is to complete the dictation, whatever it is, you see incomplete work, and also homeworks almost always doesn't come in. The child always complains of being exhausted, so a small amount of reading, a small amount of writing, or even a oral question and answer session will make the child feel very exhausted and tired. Probably because of all this, the child also has inadequate coping skills when it comes to anger or frustration, lack of self-control when dealing with these things, and difficulty making and keeping friends. Next slides, please. Coming to the oral language part, here we are dealing with two things. One is the receptive language, which means about the listening comprehension part, and then is the expressive language, which is speaking part. So when there is difficulty following instructions and explanations, and in many of our schools where the main mode of communication is auditory, it becomes very, very difficult for the child to follow the instructions given by the teacher or the explanation being done by the teacher. So this makes the class very difficult for the child to follow the concept, and also over a period of time become disinterested in what is happening in the classroom. When it comes to vocabulary, most often we see a limited vocabulary, or maybe 2 or 3 grade levels lower vocabulary, which means that this affects both the receptive language, in understanding what is being explained, and also in expressive language to communicate what the child wants to about the topic. I talked about the sequencing part. It could be trouble sequencing the stories or the events. The English teacher has just now done a lesson on some story, and when it is time for the children to retell the story back to the class, this child will have huge problem putting it in the right order. Unable to organize the words properly while speaking because of the limited vocabulary and lack of comprehension. There is trouble in exchanging the ideas, thoughts, or what the child knows about the concept. And also because of difficulty in understanding abstract concepts, the child may not understand the jokes and the sarcastic remarks made by other students in the classroom. So he may not respond or react to it appropriately. Next slide, please. Coming to the crux of the difficulty, the reading itself, right? English is actually quite difficult when compared to our regional languages to decode. And more often, when a child has difficulty with reading, we find that there is total resistance or total avoiding of having to read in the classroom, especially when there are other students present. So you will see the child usually complaining of a headache or a stomach ache or want to go to the bathroom at that point of time when it is his or her turn to read. And even when they pick up the book to read finally or eventually, the reading is very slow, word by word, very laborious process, and really frustrated reading happens. The child more often than not guesses the words looking at the first syllable, which means when the child sees the letters F and L together, it may read it, the child may read it as flower, even though the actual word may have been floor or flag or flat, right? Because he is just guessing the word based on the first letter or the syllable. The child often omits the words, skips the sentences or skips the words or makes his own substitutions to the words that are already there or add words of his own. Many children, typically, when they make mistakes while reading a paragraph, they go back and correct it because they understand what they are reading about and there is comprehension of the content of the paragraph. So they know what they read was a mistake and they go back to correct it. But a child with LD will not be able to so easily take the context clues. So he may not be able to go back and correct when he makes the mistakes whilst reading. Also, reading happens without expression and or punctuation, mainly because all the cognitive resources of the child is involved in just the reading part and not the comprehension part. So the child is putting all the efforts and so much effort into just decoding the English and trying to read it that the child is not making any effort to comprehend. And when there is no comprehension, the expression or the punctuation does not happen. And of course, because of all this, the comprehension is very, very basic at factual level or not even that at many times. Can we go to the next slide, please? Like I said before, English is a very tricky and difficult language. In most of our regional languages, what we pronounce is what we write. But English is not like that. They have many rules, spelling rules especially, and many exceptions to each of those rules, which makes it even more harder. So what we usually find in a classroom is lack of letter sound association. So the child is not able to associate the sound at a particular letter that he is reading on the paper. Omission or addition of letters while writing the spelling. You can see the examples up on this slide. There is sequencing error while writing the spelling, meaning all the letters of the word are there, but they are in the different order than it is supposed to be. Transposing letters, for P, substituting P and or the other way. Reversals for the letters that look similar. So for B and D, P and Q, N and U, either they reverse it or they write a mirror image of it, which is very common characteristics that is noticed often. Silent letters is a big issue because it doesn't make sense at all. And another interesting concept with regard to spelling is the inconsistent or bizarre spelling. For example, if a word is appearing 4 times in a paragraph, sometimes we notice 4 different spellings each time for the same word. So there is no pattern to the way the child is making an error, but the child is making the error in all the 4 instances, but differently. And of course, not knowing spelling rules like I before E except after C. And of course, there is an exception to that rule also. So these kind of things make it very difficult for the child to decode the spelling and to have the word attack skills to be able to read at the grade level. Next slide, please. Here you see a sample of dictation by a child in 2nd or 3rd grade. And if you look closely, you can see many of the errors that we just now talked about. It could be with omission of letters, addition of letters, bizarre spelling, especially for the word napkin. And also the double consonant in ball, where the child has been able to write 1 letter, but the child does not realize there are 2 letters there, right? And look at the words good. The D is written as B. Same with the wind, the D is written as B, right? So these are some of the common errors that we see when the child has learning difficulty. Next slide, please. Here is another sample of the spelling. Again, this is of a child around 11 or 12 years old. You can see that the child has been able to spell a few words correctly, especially those that are phonetic. For example, something like jungle or shady. And the child has problems spelling the words such as caught and fright, because all the GHT, you know, those things are silent, and the child has had problems with that. Similarly with the plurals, the pansies. Next slide, please. Writing is another ball game for the child here. When we talk about writing, there are 2 things to consider. One is the mechanics or the motor activity of the writing itself, and the other one is to generate the content that needs to be written, which has to be relevant to what is the topic on which the writing is happening. So more often than not, we see the child avoiding the writing activity, stalling the writing activity, making all sorts of excuses to not write at all. The child many a times is orally wonderfully, performs wonderfully in the class, but when it comes to writing, there is a huge resistance and avoidance for the writing task. To start off, the first thing to observe is how is the pencil or the pencil grip, to see whether the child is holding the pencil properly or there is an awkward grip which makes it difficult and tiring for the child to write. The child has difficulty writing in between the lines properly, maintaining the straight line, and also with the letter formation and the sizing. Sometimes we see capital letters, sometimes we see small letters. They start off with the correct size, and as they go, you know, the letters become big or small, and you know, there's a lot of mix of small and capital letters all over the writing part. And also between the spacing of the letters. Sometimes we see letters overlapping one another, and sometimes it is too far from one another. Same thing happens with the words also. There is no even spacing between the words. Takes a long time to finish the written work. When the rest of the class has answered 4 questions, this child may have written just 2 lines for the first answer, and it is still struggling. Because of the lack of confidence in writing the content, there you will notice a lot of overwriting and scratching, because the child is not sure and not certain what he is trying to write. Most commonly, there is deficit in vocabulary being used. The ideation of the topic and the sequence and structure are not age appropriate in the writing that the child produces. So it may be lagging by a grade or 2. And the self-correction part is a huge difficulty for the child. because the child will not be, will find it very difficult to proofread and make the corrections before submitting the homework or the assignment. Next slide, please. Here you see a sample of a written work. This is by a 8th grade child, which means around 13, 14 years. It is to write 5 lines about any festival. The child has chosen to write about Deepavali. As you can see, the basic ideation is there. The child is able to say what is the festival about and what are the things that is done on the festival, like getting up at 5 o'clock and taking bath, doing puja, distributing sweets, bursting crackers. So the basic ideation is there. But like I said before, this is the work of a child in 8th grade. So at the 8th grade level, what are we expecting? We are expecting at least a written work to be about 3 paragraphs, an intro and a body and a conclusion, and going in a proper sequence and order to say what is the festival about. But this is what the child has been able to produce. You can see the spelling issues, you can see the sentence sequencing and structure issues here, which are quite not up to the grade level. Next, please. Here is another passage written by again an 8th standard child. Basically, we had a guest speaker in the school to do an activity for all our kids, and the next day the English class, the English teacher required them to write a small paragraph on what happened the previous day. So this was just the previous day. It was not even long after the event happened. It was just the previous day the event had happened. The next day they had to write this paragraph. And as you can see, it is so difficult to read this writing of this child. So I have put in the actual paragraph that the child intended to read, intended to write at the bottom. Again, you can see that there is indeed ideation, basic ideation of what happened in the activity class. But of course, you see a serious deficit in terms of vocabulary, the sentence sequencing and the structure and the length of the content itself. Right? Next slide, please. Mathematics. Typically, mathematics is intimidating to even typical children who are in school. Maths is always a big no-no subject for many students. When we come to children with learning difficulty, this adds another dimension of difficulty because of the abstractness of the subject. A child who is finding it difficult to find patterns in terms of shape or size or color or attributes will not be able to do the sorting or matching of anything. So that is the first flag that tells us that there might be something to follow on here. And the child is unable to do ordering like ascending or descending order or sequence something in the order required. Difficulty in comparing in terms of greater or lesser or equal to. And of course, estimating something. For example, a child may be unable to figure out how many slices of bread is required to make sandwich for him and his brother for lunch, right? Because it takes a lot of steps where the child has to figure out how much do I eat, how much do my brother eat, one sandwich, how many slices, all these things. So the child finds all those too much to calculate. Time and measurement are very abstract concepts for the children, right? So when they are unable to understand this, there are serious other manifestations of it in terms of time management, which becomes one of the most noticed, behavior in the children with LD, where they are not able to manage their time well, to be on time to the class or to finish the assignment or come back from the lunch break or come back from the recess snack break that I have been given. Unaware of the language of math. Math has its own vocabulary, right? So, for example, when we talk about total, there are many synonyms to that, like sum, altogether, in all, add, all this. So, a child with LD will be totally get confused with so many synonyms meaning the same thing. Because when we look at word problems, every word problem does not use total, or every word problem does not use sum. They can use any of these words, and this can get confusing. Trouble with basic computational skills like addition, subtraction, where you need grouping, you need to borrow, you need to, in multiplication and division, you need to follow a particular procedure. All this can be a lot of confusing for the child. Reversal numbers and symbols, numbers like 2 and 5, 6 and 9 often get reversed or written in mirror format. Confusion with plus and multiplication symbols are commonly noticed. And of course, when we come to solving word problems, if the child already has reading comprehension issues, then it adds another dimension to the difficulty. Because to solve a word problem, you first need to understand what the problem is telling you in terms of what it is, what data it is giving, and what it is asking you to do. And if the reading comprehension is not happening, then the understanding of the problem itself is in trouble. So computing the answer is even more difficult. Next, please. So here on screen, you'll see a couple of samples. The top two are from the internet actually, and the bottom three are the typical things that we notice in the classroom. With the subtraction problem, at the bottom, you can see that the borrowing didn't happen. And in the second one, the place value is completely not in place. So the child is putting everything in the hundreds column instead of the tens and the units. And the confusion with the multiplication and the plus symbol in the last one. In the top two, you see the reversals happening, the way the 5 and the 6 and 4 are written, where the child is writing the mirror image of the number. Next, please. Okay, the next set of problems are about the cognitive abilities or the thinking and reasoning abilities of the person. One of the main things that is noticed is the executive function deficit. When we come to executive function, we are talking about the skills like planning, organization, task initiation, cognitive flexibility, where when there is change in the plan, then the child is able to adapt easily, and also with regard to self-control and memory. When there is executive function deficit, you often notice the child being very unorganized, not knowing what to bring to the school, not preparing for the test or exam that has been announced and informed, or unable to do the classwork or the homework that has been given, or even to dress properly based on which day of the week it is. Like some schools have a different uniform for the sports day and a different uniform for the Saturdays, and the rest of the days it's a different uniform. A child with executive function deficit finds this very hard to do, so may need the support of the parent on with regard to these things. They may find it very difficult to learn new concepts and to remember them, mainly because of unable to relate to it or unable to activate the background knowledge that they already have on it so that they can learn the concept. Unable to see patterns, memory deficits we talked about, inability to generalize, meaning applying what they have learned in one setting to another setting. For example, if in the physics class they learned that metal conducts heat, then in the home, in the kitchen, they should know not to touch the, the handle of the metal vessel that there is, because they may burn their hand and because it's hot. Difficulty making decisions, more often because lack of information, lack of practice, and also lack of confidence in making the decisions. Next slide, please. Because of all these academic issues that we talked about so far, the child may have in the school, at home, when with family, when with friends, may have gone through a lot of ridicule from whether it is teachers or friends or parents, or may have been bullied because of lack of performance in the class, or not able to answer questions in the class, or the teacher pointing out that he scored the lowest in the class. or the child may be called several names from the adults or the peers, whatever. So because of all this, there is going to be, which it is going to have an effect on the socio-emotional state of the child. So more often, we notice either child becoming aggressive as a self-defense mechanism to protect himself, or withdrawing completely from everybody else, saying, I don't want to deal with anyone. Right? So we see the child with very low self-esteem, not confident of doing anything independently, even in a classroom. When they know the answer and when they can work out and find the answer, they need the teacher's approval or the parents' approval for very small thing, because of no confidence in themselves at all. Lack of impulse control, they don't know, they may not know how to control or regulate themselves, whether when they are angry, whether when they are happy. So they may jump up and down on the chair in the classroom when they are happy, or they may push somebody when they are angry, not knowing the consequences. They are unable to manage distractions. So even in a classroom, when there are 10 or 15 or 20 kids doing their work, each child needs to focus attention on the work that they are doing, irrespective of what other children are doing. But a child with LD may not be able to do that. So he may be nicely watching what other children are doing and forgetting to do his own work. Difficulty in managing anger and frustration. This is one of the biggest problems that we see often, especially when the child is becoming an adolescent. Not able to manage the anger and the frustration. So either it becomes aggression or it becomes, withdrawal. Difficulty with peer group instructions, mainly because of all the above: lack of impulse control, not being able to assert themselves of what ideas and thoughts they have. It is very difficult for such a child to participate actively in a group interaction. So instead of becoming an active participant, such a child will be a passive observer, sitting back and letting everybody else do the work. They also have difficulty making and keeping friends, and we have seen that many a times it causes a lot of anxiety and stress in the child, because he thinks he cannot make friends or keep friends. Next slide, please. So because of all this, what do we have in a classroom? We have a person, we have a child who is not able to read. We have a child who is completely lost to solve even small math problems. A child who does not know what to write, even though he knows what to write, he does not know how to put it on paper. A child lost without knowing what instructions the teachers are giving. And because of all this, the child may be unhappy, sad, withdrawn, not ready to participate and be the happy child that they are supposed to be when they are in school and with their friends. And eventually, this may all lead to total aversion or disinterest in the academics part of their life. Next, please. So as parents and as teachers, what do we do? What is the next step, and how do we bridge this gap so that we make the child, first of all, a happy child, and solve the main pieces of the puzzle, so that we can encourage the child and motivate the child to become a happy learner. Next slide, please. I'm going to tell you right now what we actually do in Brindavan in our center. Some other institutes may do it differently. So first thing is to observe the child for all the difficulties and characteristics that we talked about just now. And we usually do it for a period of over 2 weeks, because this gives us a solid data to observe the child in different settings. When I'm talking about different settings, it means in a classroom, in the break hour, in the extracurricular activities, in the playground, in different subject classes, because we have seen the children behave differently in different subject classes, behave differently from a classroom to the playground. So this will give us a 360-degree view of the strengths and needs of the child, when we do it over a period of at least 2 weeks and in different settings. With this observation, you compile the strengths and the needs of the child. We need to do both definitely, because to help the child with the needs, we need to know the strengths of the child, because we are going to use the strengths to bridge the gap to the needs. Once we have done that, we determine the present levels for the child in each of the skill area. The present level basically gives us the baseline. It gives us the starting point to start our remedial program or intervention program or the support that we need to give the child. Then comes the big thing, the individual education program, which is a tailor-made program for this specific child to meet the specific needs of the child using the strengths of the child. So the strategies that we use, the evaluation that we do are all based on the strengths of the child. And then the IEP is monitored regularly, and in case if something is not working, you have to go back and rework your IEP to try out the new strategies and the new timelines. Next, please. Here is a sample of the checklist that we use during the observation. So during the observation period, all of us teachers will have checklists for each of the skill areas. Here I have just put a small sample of the checklist that we use to determine the attention of the child, where we mark yes or no over a period of time and then compile the results. Next, please. And here is a checklist for receptive language, which is listening. So you go into the details of single step instruction, multi-step instruction. Is there a delayed response? Is there a response at all? What about group instructions? What about individual instructions? All this. On the internet, there are a wide variety of checklists available. So you can go through them and use the one that as a base that meets suits your needs, and using that you can build on to make it suitable for your child, your learning environment, and the setup that you are applying the observation. Next, please. So after the observation is done and we have the data, then all the subject teachers, what we do is we give it to the class teacher, who is going to compile all this and determine the present levels for each of the child for each of the skill areas that we talked about just now. We even include homework submission, coming on time, behavior with the peers and teachers, and many other behavior aspects also, so that we have a full, complete, holistic view of the child. However, the IEP and the intervention program is always prepared by the qualified special educator, because they are trained to do that. And from then on, the class teachers work with the special educator in supporting the child in the class. This I'm talking about the last line is about the mainstream schools, where usually there is a special educator who has developed the IEP programs, and the other teachers of the class will follow that IEP to support the child in the classroom. Next, please. Okay. Looks like we are done for today. Can I have the slide up, please?
Pardon, ma'am. Pardon. Can you please repeat?
Yeah. So next slide, please. Yeah. So what did we look at today? Just a brief recap. We learned about how learning takes place. We talked about input, integration, memory, and output processes. We looked at SLD characteristics in terms of skills like oral language, reading, spelling, writing, math, cognitive, and behavior. And we also looked at the process of observation and developing present levels. We are going to talk about the intervention and accommodations in our next Saturday class. Next slide, please. Yeah. We will be happy to take any questions that you all may have. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, any questions? We're happy to answer.
Professionals and teachers, you can post your questions in chat box. It will be read to the speakers. Are teachers trained with pronunciation since it differs from person to person?
Should I take that?
Yes, yes, Janaki. By
Ma'am,
default, you take it.
I'll complete the question.
Yeah.
Are teachers trained with pronunciation since it differs from person to person and might pose difficulty in understanding for the child?
Yes. See, there are cultural differences in the way you pronounce words. Sometimes it's also nice for teachers also to come up, to do your homework and come up with an acceptable pronunciation. We are not talking of Queen's English here, but we are certainly talking of a pronunciation which is correct for the Indian standards. And sometimes the regional differences in pronunciation are there, but many of them are within the acceptable limits. So it's fine as long as we are able, the person listening is able to understand what you're trying to convey.
Okay, ma'am, and there is a question like it is not, it is from a parent. Actually, what she is asking is like, my son have mild autism and he's 4.5 years old. He is not ready to write. Most of the time, we have to force him to write. How to encourage him to write and also write in between the line? He is in nursery class now.
Okay, I'm going to answer this in two parts. Thank you for the question. One is the child ready to write? There is something called readiness skills for every one of those skill areas which Pushpa talked about. The child should be physically and mentally ready to write. That means he has gone through the foundation of learning to scribble, enjoys the process, etc. We'll talk about readiness skills when we come to our strategies next session. But as a small tip for this parent, look here, I've always seen our children, if I give them a big board and I give them a chalk, or if your child doesn't like chalk, a whiteboard, or whatever material he likes, if you stand up, make him stand up and then start scribbling, we have found that a child who's standing up enjoys the activity, actually they'll do it. Otherwise, I pull them outside, take them out somewhere. Wherever our child loves scribbling on the wall, maybe in your house you can keep a wall where he can scribble. He can keep his arm and fingers against the wall and start tracing maybe, and then give him a wall where he can scribble. First of all, or on the ground, outside on a floor outside where he can just draw some shapes. Start with shapes. Ask your child, what does he enjoy writing on? And get back to us on October 3rd. And please experiment and let us know whether these two tricks worked.
Okay, that's interesting, ma'am. So the next question is, I'm interested to know where do we get the observation checklist from?
I'm going to let
Can I
you
answer that? Yeah. Observation checklists, you can search on the internet, like SLD observation checklists or something like that. There are quite a lot of observation checklists, but many of them may not be suitable for Indian setting because most of the checklists that you see are, either US based or UK based. And also checklists differ in terms of the age group of the child. So if you are looking for a child in primary class, the checklist is different from what you would look in a high school, for a high school child. So the details are more in high school level rather than in the younger group. So I can find out a couple of websites and share that with Embrace, and they can probably communicate that with you. But they are available in plenty on the internet.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Back to Pushpa's thing. One of our own colleagues, it was a Brindavan produced book, How to Set Up a Resource Room. It was written by Dr. Reena Silva. If you would contact Brindavan at the address, I think Embrace will give you that address. The bunch of checklists is in that book. If you're interested, you could pick it up, and then you really need to customize it to the environment you're working in. But if it's helpful, go ahead and buy the book.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We will get back to you regarding that book, Vrindavan, and please help us in that. So the next question is like, what is the responsibility of a subject teacher towards SLD child in mainstream school?
Okay. What is responsibility for a subject teacher?
Yes, subject toward teacher toward SLD child in mainstream school.
Okay. We are responsible for teaching all children in whatever areas they can do well in. And I firmly believe that if you teach well, you can appeal to all children. The role of the subject teacher, like I said, is do those observations well, because it's going to really help the child maximize his potential. Because when you see strengths and when you see weaknesses, and you're going to take the help of a counselor or a special educator, how to bridge those either within the classroom or external support systems, that is the best thing you can do for the child. Because earlier the better. If you keep being sharp and looking at the child and giving us his strengths and weaknesses, we can easily give you an IEP which you can work within your classroom also. So that is the role, and hopefully, like Pushpa says, it all comes back to the observation finally, where you make very, very quick notes about your children.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you for that. Ma'am, there is a parent who is asking this. My son is 11 years old, reluctant to study and step out of house. How can I help him?
He's reluctant to study and he's reluctant to step out of the house.
Yes.
Okay. I want to ask this parent, we are not going to label any child at all. But sometimes when you yourself cannot understand, it's better to take the help of professionals. Maybe she could get him assessed and find out what is bothering him. Actually, that would be, not for labeling again, but for understanding the child's problem and giving him the right support and the right environment to work.
Ma'am, is it a educational, both psycho-educational assessment, or it's just like what the parent has to go for?
I mean, because the child also has issues of self-esteem, I would suppose, and there's a reason he doesn't want to step out of the house. I would say you would go in for the entire assessment, like, the psychological as well as the educational, because a professional will be able to guide you.
Okay, okay. Hope it was helpful for the parent who asked for that question. Ma'am, the another question is like, can you please tell us about the format of IPE used in normal schools? As I am
Yeah,
as I am from special school, it is different from a special school. She mean to say like in a normal school means mainstream school only, I believe.
Hmm.
Yeah, so she's asking, can you please tell about the format of IPE used? It's basically child
IEP.
specific. Yeah. Uh, who has posed this question can please come on mic, and can you clear this confusion?
Pushpa will take this, right?
Yeah, I can see the question here,
Yeah.
Indu. I think it says, can you please tell about format of IEP
Yes.
Yes.
used in normal school, as I am from a special school? Is it different from a special school? IEP need not be different in the terms of special school or normal typical school. Basically, what an IEP contains is the strengths of the child, the needs of the child in each skill area, and it also contains the present level for each skill area. So, for example, if we are talking about reading, let's say the child is in sixth grade, and when we are talking about reading, our present level may say the child is able to read fourth grade level textbooks independently. But the child is right now in sixth grade level, so which means there is a difficulty for the child to read the grade level book. And also the present level may say he able.
Pushpa
Uh,
ma'am, you went on mute.
no, I think somebody muted her by mistake. Uh,
You can
one of
unmute yourself, ma'am. Pushpa ma'am.
Did I go on mute right now or for long?
Ma'am, there was a little gap actually.
Okay. So, so that is the basic information in the IEP, where you mention the strengths and the needs and the present level of the child. And also you talk about what strategies you will use to bridge that gap. So there is a reading level 2 grade level gap, If the child is in 6th grade and able to read only 4th grade level book, then you need to bridge that gap, right? So what is the strategy you are going to use? That is the crux of the IEP. How are you going to use that? What is the strategies? What are, maybe you will use 2 or 3 strategies. And how do you evaluate after you administer the strategies for say a month or month and a half, and then evaluate to see what is the progress. And if there is no progress at all, then maybe you need to go back to the design board and see where which other strategy you can use. So this is the basic format of IEP. I think it should be the same in whether it's in special school or in typical schools.
Yeah, in typical school, maybe she's talking of a child who's kind of included within the entire system, where you're supported, or an integrated system where you're supported by an IEP, but the child is actually within the general classroom, right? So that is when you get specific things to be addressed for the child, maybe with the help of a support teacher who's sitting inside the same class in a general classroom, or in an inclusive classroom where the entire structure is kind of meant for every child there, right? So otherwise you would have your lesson plans, which is executed for all children.
Okay, thank you so much for that, ma'am. Here is one parent, she is asking like, can the child be trained in spelling and handwriting before going into full syllabus material? This is from Parvati.
Can you read the question again?
Yeah, can the child be trained in spelling and handwriting before going into full syllabus material? Parvati, if you are there, can you please come online and please on your mic, and can you ask the question?
Yeah, no issues.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Actually, I wanted to know because we generally come across children who face spelling and handwriting in the initial stages itself, and that just happens to add on to their problems. I'm not talking specifically about SLD, but in general about the main school itself, and the problem just multiplies. And then this so-called labeling or everything starts in the child as well as from the parent side. So is it a good thing, instead of focusing more on the subject or pressurizing the child from first grade to complete the syllabus, instead is it better to focus on basic spellings and handwriting, so that once that is strengthened we can go forward with what the child has to know grade wise, like what Pushpa ma'am was mentioning. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question for Parvati. So what is the way we teach? What is the first skill in teaching? We start with listening, right? And then we go on to oral language. Then we go on to reading. Then we go on to spelling, writing, like that. That is the order learning happens. And learning is always holistic. In my reading sessions, I always used to say the cycle of reading is not complete unless comprehension also happens. So first of all, like you need to know whether the child is ready for these activities. Suppose the foundation skills of the pre-learning stages were all in place. The fundamental, what do you call, the scaffolding was in place for the child. The structure for the building was strong. Then it will all go in a logical order, and then everything becomes holistic. Like we teach. Suppose you teach something orally, you would parallelly teach that something, read that spelling, make it into a sentence, make that into small stories, like that. So at that, but you have to keep it at the level the child is able to understand, which means the child is fundamentally, suppose he's at CVC word level, consonant, vowel, consonant level, cat, mat, rat level. Make sentences with cat, mat, rat. Where does the cat, what does the cat do? What are sentences with cat? And then you teach the whole lesson. So the whole learning becomes holistic. It cannot really be, let us do this and then come to that. Somewhere the child, you lose the child along the way because he gets so bored.
Can I add to that?
Sure.
Also, the main purpose of the primary classes, if you actually see the board instructions and all that, when we are talking about class 1 to 3, the primary focus should be here on skill development, not the content itself. Meaning what? We have to train them in oral language expression and receptive language. We have to teach them to read and teach them to write and teach them to spell. But what happens is in this hurry to finish the content that they have set themselves up for. The skill development, takes a back seat, but content completion takes the, major role, plays the major role. And that is where children who are not able to catch up in that speed, they kind of fall behind, and then you see the gap. So typically the skill development is what should be focused on in the primary years.
Yes, ma'am. That was exactly what I was referring to. Because now in most of the schools, we see this rush to complete the portion, not just in younger classes, it's seen in the higher classes also.
Yes.
So whatever
Yes.
difficulties they have faced in the younger classes, it just accumulates by the
Correct.
time they reach the higher level. And I have come across children who are in 8th and 9th also with probably the same mistake as candle. The spelling of candle still remains CANDEL only for them.
That's
Yes.
logical for them, isn't it, Parvati? Phonetically.
Ma'am? Pardon?
Phonetic-
Phonetically.
Yes, that is the problem with English language, that
Yes.
phonetically and what you write. That's why I was asking you about the pronunciation also.
Yeah.
Because nowadays the accent makes a big difference. In certain schools, they put a lot of stress on the accent of the teacher, and the children are also supposed to repeat, probably in Americanized or English British accent or Queen accent, whatever you call it. So they if you pronounce it the way we were taught when we were young, in the typical Indian way, it doesn't go well with the children.
Yes.
And
Yes.
though we try to teach, it's a simple pronunciation, like for entrepreneur, or when we talk about environment, if we call it as environment, because it's
Yeah.
easy to understand the spelling. But when we say as environment, it's natural that the spelling is not understood. And
True.
when they write, they obviously face the issue. So that
Very
was what
true.
I was asking you about earlier. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Any other questions? We can take 2 more questions, I believe. Right,
Yeah.
Janki ma'am?
Yeah, sure.
Definitely.
Actually, most of the queries related on strategies.
Strategies. Yes,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
So they might have to stay in much more if they want to learn so many strategies. So next session might be longer, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes,
Typically, we in our SLD course, I mean, to be very frank, in our SLD course, for each of the skill area that we talked about, we have 1 or 2 3-hour sessions where we talk about the characteristics and we talk about the various strategies that can be used. So it's a long
I know. And it's always a child specific also, no? ma'am?
Yes,
It's
yes,
not like,
definitely.
it is same for every child.
Yeah.
As we say, every child is unique. The same way the strategies might also, it will get different, I believe.
Yes. So that's why you need a big barrel of strategies, so you know which one to pick up and use.
Yes, it's a permutation combination.
Yeah, definitely.
What we have to do.
Definitely.
By its very definition, when we say it is learning difficulties, it's not homogeneous problems. It's a heterogeneous, issue. And each child manifesting different things. So, well, we try to put some things together for us to get a basic understanding.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Okay. Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much. Miss Grace, can you please take over?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you so much, both of you, ma'am, for the wonderful session we had right now. A very big thank you from the Embrace team to the speakers of today, Mrs. Janagi Narayan and Mrs. Pushpara, who agreed for our request and made an effort to share your knowledge with us. Thank you. Sincere thanks to volunteers who are working behind the screen to make things happen. Heartfelt thanks to the participants too, who took their time to attend this webinar. Thank you one and all once again. Thank you.
And Embrace's upcoming webinars, that is the continuation, identification and strategies. Yeah, that is on October 3rd by same resource people, by Brindavan Trust only. And we do have webinar on occasional and skill guidance for the individuals with developmental disabilities on October 10th by Miss Gayatri. Please, it will be helpful for everyone. Thanks again, one and all. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Can we log out?
Just a moment.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll get back to you, both of you, ma'am.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
can we log out?
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Hindu, for doing all the technical work for us.
Oh, it goes to Embrace team. All of us
Yeah,
are
all the embracing. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. I know many
Thank
of you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
anytime, ma'am. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Good evening. Bye.
Bye.